I'd like to call to order the March 7th Citizen Advisory Committee meeting. I'd like to start with a roll call. Here.
Try this one. There we go. Klassen. Gilmore.
Here.
Hodges. Holloway.
Here.
R. Johnson.
Here.
Kelly. Kiefer.
Here.
Lord. Wolin.
Here.
Nolan. Obleton. Patel. Winkler. Rasso.
Here. And we do have a quorum.
Thank you so much. Next, are there any citizens with CAC business to present to the Citizens Advisory Commission? Seeing none, I'd like to review and approve the minutes from the February 7th, 2022 meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Thank you. Next is a review and acceptance of the financial report through November.
And I just wanted to state for the record, it was also in your packet. As we have said every month for the last few months, as a reminder, HUD did not give us our authorization to expend grant funds until December. So as a result, we couldn't start doing reimbursements until December. And you'll notice on the financial report, there aren't yet any payouts reflected in November for the expenses from the subrecipient agencies. And that's because they started submitting to us in late December. So those will be reflected when we get the report for December and January. So it isn't indicative that they're behind. It's just that they couldn't even start submitting the payouts to us till December.
Heather, thank you for that clarification.
I move that we accept the financial report.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Thank you. Next, we will have an action item as year 48 CDBG allocation recommendations. I would like to remind the council that everything needs to be approved via motion, so please use the form to raise your hand and be recognized. Heather, please.
And if it would be okay, I do have a brief little summary sheet that I can go over, that the colored sheet, the colored paper. I know we have several new members this year, so just to go through again, kind of how we got to this point. You know, we've been at this now since July of 2021, when we started approving our public input process. We went through the summer, we gathered public input. In the fall, in October, we set local objectives. In November, we had an application workshop, and the CAC approved an application that we used. The applications were due in December. In January, we went through a process of application review by the CAC and some work sessions. In February, the applicants came in and made presentations to you all, and then the scores were due at the end of February. So this is kind of the conclusion of our funding year tonight, our allocation process. And where we go from here, so we'll kind of go through the process of what we'll do tonight. But then from here, remember that the CAC is a recommendation body. So the CAC makes a recommendation that is forwarded to City Council for consideration, and that will happen in the second council cycle of March. Assuming that the City Council accepts your recommendation or makes any changes to it, which is their right to do, then it will be included in our annual plan that is due to HUD in May, and Megan works on our annual plan, so she's joining us for that. Then HUD has 45 days to approve our plan. And in theory, if all of this works perfectly, then we'll start our new program year on time on July 1st. But rarely does it actually happen that way. And the reason is that HUD does not receive the amount that they get for the CDBG program. And so therefore they can't calculate out what each city is going to get in a timely fashion from Congress because Congress has not yet passed a budget. So those of you who've been on the CAC for a few years, you know that the last 2 years we had these wonderful outlier years where we had our grant amount at the time that we did our allocation, which this will be my 12th or maybe 13th, 12th, I think, allocation. And those are the only 2 times in that entire time that that happened. So now we're back to what I would say is more business as usual, which is that we are making this allocation tonight based on an estimation. So our estimation based on, we belong to a national organization that kind of helps us interpret what's happening at the national level. And they've told us to expect a slight increase from CDBG. So we're estimating a 5% increase. And then we also have to include program income into our calculation, but we've actually decreased our program income estimation a little bit just because payments have been down this last year or two. And so we don't want to overestimate program income that could result in us exceeding a cap. So that's kind of the scenario that we come into tonight. We're working again on an estimate, and we're estimating about 1.7 as our CDBG grant for the year that begins July 1st. So that could change, it could go up or down. So we will go through the allocation process tonight, but at the end of the evening, what we'll do is we'll ask the CAC to approve some language in the allocation recommendation that enables a plus or minus 15% across the board change if the HUD's actual value comes in lower than they expect or higher than they expect, up to 15%, that we would make the changes at the staff level. And if that would exceed the 15% threshold, then we would have to come back to the CAC, and the CAC would make a new set of allocations at that time. So we don't really expect that to happen this year, but you never know. So that's why we kind of go through that 15% language each year. So just for a reminder for our new people and some of our seasoned members, you have the color printout in front of you. And here, the CAC has, since about 2011, done its allocations based on a formula. So what happens is you all go through a scoring process. All the members review all the applications, and you score them according to the framework, the evaluation elements that CAC has approved, and the application CAC has approved. Then those scores are totaled, and the totals kind of get entered into the formula. So what you're seeing on this colored sheet of paper is kind of a quick little summary of many steps of a process in that formula. So this year we had 11 CAC members who submitted scoring sheets, completed short scoring sheets for the applicants. There were 8 public service applications that were reviewed. Each application could receive up to 100 points, which means the total pool of points available was 8,800 in theory. Then, because each application did not receive 100% score, and that is never going to happen, or at least it should never happen if you're all scoring diligently. They're not going to receive 100% from 100% of the CAC members. That means that there are going to be some points that are not awarded. So you see that in the little dotted pie slice there. In step 3, the reminder is that you have a pie of points, and that is equivalent to a pie of dollars that are available for the public service category. And so if there are unawarded points, that means there are unawarded dollars. And because of HUD, we cannot have unawarded dollars. So we have to have a process to award those unawarded dollars by the formula. So what the formula does is it ranks the applicants, and it kind of in the last step there, it puts a little bit more money into each of them according to their rank. So if you're a higher scorer, you get a little bit bigger of a piece of those extra dollars and points. If you're a low scorer, you get a little bit smaller piece of those extra dollars and points. But the important thing to remember is they're all going to get at least the amount that their points would indicate they should get. So you're going to start with that baseline, and anything on top of that is extra. So this is kind of like representing what the formula does. We have all different kinds of learners. Some people need the numbers, some people need the visuals, so it's for both. So if there's any questions about that process. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the one part you left out was that they can't go over what they requested.
Correct, you're right, I did miss that statement.
Thank,
Yep. Okay, and then the other thing I want to just do really quickly is tell you what all the papers in front of you are. Some of you, if you came in early, I was able to talk to you quick, but if I didn't catch you, I want to make sure you all have it in front of you. So first, the thing that says year 48 application summary, which is a grid like this, vertical, that's just so you have a reminder of what everybody requested. And on there too is what they requested and received for the last allocation cycle. So you can just see it as a comparison. You have this sheet, which has some red letters on it. And that's just a reminder of the motions that we need tonight. So the process was laid out by the CAC and approved. It's been amended several times since then. And so this is just a reminder of what that approved process is. And it's basically goes by taking a vote of if you want to do the public service or the non-public service first. And then whichever one you want to do, then we go through the steps for that one first and then the other. And then at the end is, again, that reminder of the plus or minus 15%. So that will be kind of the process we go through. And then what you're really interested in are the two kind of landscape sheets that have numbers on them. One of them is double-sided. That is the total points that are awarded to each of the applicants. So that's more or less informational at this point. Because that has already been rolled into the second sheet, but some members like to see the total points, so we always print them out for you. The other thing that's important there is the far right column, where it says, should this applicant be funded? A number of years ago, I think maybe 2017 or 18, the CAC indicated they wanted a choice to say, like, aside from the numbers on the scores, should we be funding this application at all, yes or no? And so that's where that column came from. The front side is the non-public services and the back side is the public services. And so the numbers there indicate the number of no's, if any, that they got. Then the second sheet is your sample allocation formula for the public services. Now, as a reminder, the public services, the formula, because it's capped, we're able to do that formula very easily. And so this is only a recommendation. The CAC has the ability to talk about it and change it, but it's a starting point for discussions. Likewise, the non-public services, because it is a little more complicated, that one we do on the screen, and then the formula works exactly the same except for the admin category, because the admin category isn't scored. So those couple admin lines of planning administration and housing rehab administration, those aren't scored categories. So that just needs a direct vote from the CAC of how much they would recommend. And then once that number, whatever it is input, then the formula will calculate out the other items in the non-public service category. So we'll go through how these numbers were arrived at on screen so everybody can see them. But we print it out for you because that screen is really far away. So.
Go ahead, Jack.
I'll make a motion to address the public services first.
And as a reminder, all the votes tonight are roll call votes, so Dawn will be calling the roll for every vote, even if it's simple majority.
Okay, Byrd?
Yes.
Classen?
yes.
Gilmore?
Yes.
Hodges? Holloway?
Yes.
R. Johnson?
Yes.
Kiefer?
Yes.
Lord? Wolin?
Can I ask what we're voting on?
So you have the motion sheet here,
Yep.
and Chad made a motion to, the CAC needs to decide if you're going to vote on the public services or the non-public services first. It's not a commitment of funding, it's just a commitment to decide which category to discuss first.
Thank you. Yes.
Nolan? Nolan, I'm sorry. Obleton?
Yes.
Rasso? Yes. Passes.
Thank you. So we'll begin with the public service. Heather, did you want to discuss the formula?
So what I can do is I'll just display for you on screen what the public services, how that number that you're seeing on your printout was arrived at. So here, we'll start over here in the left column. Can you all see that? Or it's the same on your, mostly the same on your printout. So here we have the applicants. They are ranked in order of their share of the points that they received. We display their request here, but as a reminder, they can request any number they want. There's no cap or limit or requirement at all about their request. They can request very little, they can request very high, and the formula is kind of blind to what they request. It really has more to do with this category, which is how many points did they receive. So as a reminder, the public service category is capped by HUD. We aren't able to award more than a certain amount of money. And so for the upcoming year, we estimate that the public service available is going to be $290,000. And that represents 15% of our grant plus additional 15% of program income that we estimate. So remember that it's all estimated. So with the program income, we have to be conservative because if we estimate program income high and then we don't get that that program income, then we could potentially be awarding more than our cap. So keep that in mind. It's all an estimate. So the first pass through, you can see they're awarding shares of dollars here, starting here with project renewal, the column that starts with 24,584. That's a share of dollars equivalent to the share of points. And you can see the spread here is not very great. The top scorer here is 24,000. The bottom scorer here gets 21. And that's because our percentages are really not that far apart. We're talking about 1.5% from top to bottom. So again, because we said that dollars are awarded in the same proportion as points, and not all of the points were awarded because not everybody got a perfect score, we see down here at the bottom that we have 290,000 available in the category, and the first pass awarded 189, which leaves about 100 that hadn't been awarded based on the share of points. But HUD doesn't allow us to have unawarded funds. So the second pass through in the formula is it awards these extra dollars, this 100 here, it awards it from top to bottom based on the highest scorer gets the highest share of that money and the lowest scorer gets the lowest. And it goes by percentages. So the top one gets 8% because we have 8 applicants. So it's 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1% as we go down. So that's the second pass, is awarding everybody a chunk of change equivalent to their rank order. But as we go down, we see still we have 290 available, but this second pass has rewarded, now we're up to 225, but we still have 64-ish that's available to award, and we can't have unawarded funds. So we divide that 64 by the number of applicants we have, which results in $8,046 extra dollars for each one. And we award that in our third pass. Each applicant gets an equal share of that kind of last amount of money. But I will point out the top one has $1 extra, and that's just because there was an extra dollar, so it has to go somewhere. So if I have an extra dollar left over due to rounding, it goes to the top score. If I've awarded $1 extra due to rounding, it comes off the bottom score. So that's all how it does. And you can see with this final pass, we have awarded our full $290,000. So if we take that at face value, this column that says total initial award is what the CAC recommended award would be. However, we have to look at this award in comparison to what they requested because we cannot award more than they have requested. And we can see in this example, everyone was within their request except Friendly House, requested 35, and the formula, if we don't alter it, would award them 39. And so we can't allow that. So what happens in the final step is we cap the award at the requested amount. So Friendly House loses 4,406 because it's over its request, and that 4,406 is divided equally amongst all the others, except there were $2 extra, so that got awarded to the highest scorer. So I know it seems silly to be worried about $2, but we really can't have even $1 left unawarded. So that's how it is. So then with that adjustment, I'm going to scroll over here. The total calculated award is shown in this column that I've highlighted, 41,309, 35, and so on. And that is in compliance with both HUD rules. We have not exceeded our $290,000 cap, but we have awarded the most we think we can, which has historically been important to the CAC. And as I say, this is a starting place for discussion. So this is a formula calculated award based on a formula the CAC has approved, but the CAC can discuss each of these projected awards and decide if they would like to propose changes to them. So if the CAC would like to make changes, it requires a motion that identifies where the money should come from, where the money should come to, and why. And then that motion must pass with a 2/3 majority vote. So that is how you would make changes here. Now, as a reminder, this is a capped category. So while we can move money around within the public services, and we can even move money out of the public services and into non-public services if the CAC would so choose, we cannot move money from non-public services into public services because of the cap. So that is kind of the overview here of what could be, of what the formula calculated amount states.
I was just going to remind people, especially for the new people, if you're going to want to give, let's say you want to give Family Resources more money, you have to decide where it's coming from. If you're going to take a little bit from everybody, that's one thing, whatever it is. But if you're going to award somebody extra that other than what's on there, you have to say where it came from.
Mr. Russell?
Could you go back to that 876, whatever it was, where that second allocation? I wasn't,
Sure.
I just didn't
Okay,
quite follow
Yeah.
how that column
sure.
was calculated, 876543321.
So it's a function, that's the third step, it's a function of the first two. So the first two awards an equivalent share of dollars proportionate to the share of points that each applicant got.
Right,
So
right.
that's this
I got that column,
Okay.
right.
And then there's something left over, so then we do descending percents, 8%, 7%, 6, 5, and down. But
And-
that's still left after that pass
Right,
through.
no, right,
No.
so that's my question. How
Yeah.
did we get to the
Yes, and that's-
876543321 calculation?
So, that was built into the formula by the CAC some years ago. It was part of the calculation when the CAC came up with the formula. They wanted a way to, beyond this first column, to also continue to award the high scorers with more of the kind of extra than the lower scorers, is where that came from.
As opposed to just doing it proportionately?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I just
Yep.
curious, thank you.
And then the third column here, the 8,046 or 47, after that second pass, there's still 64 left. So there's 8 applicants. We divide 64 by 8 applicants, and it results in 8,046. And so they're each awarded 8,046, except there was $1 left over, so it went to the highest scorer, and that one got 8,047.
Heather, thank you for that clarification. Mr. Byrd?
I don't particularly have a strong opinion one way or another on this, but I would just like to put it up for discussion. The 8,046 that we're awarding evenly across all applicants, is there any consideration to awarding that proportionally as well? Again, I don't really have a strong opinion on it. I don't necessarily want to make a motion, but anybody else have that same thought? Any history with that? Maybe why it's not already done?
Any thoughts at all?
I'm
Ms. Johnson?
I'm sorry, tell me, where does that come from again?
So the CAC, and we still have a couple members who were on those committees back in the day, but kind of history of how the formula came to be might be pertinent here, which is prior to about 2011, 2010, the CAC could make there was no connection, no formal approved connection between the points that were received in scoring and the dollars that were awarded in allocation. And so as a result, there could be a very high scoring applicant who got very little money, and there could be a very low scoring applicant that got more money, just as a result of conversation and motions and where the evening kind of went. And that proved to be predictably not very popular with some of the agencies that felt they had performed very well, but had not been rewarded for that performance. And so the city council instructed the CAC they in fact rejected the CAC's recommendation twice, I believe, that year, and asked the CAC to go back and kind of revise the process and make it more structured and more predictable so that that agencies could be assured that if they performed well on the application, that they would, be able to have some consistency in the award that they would get as a result of that. So out of that process came a formula-driven process that the CAC actually voted for. There was several subcommittees. It went through several, maybe 2-3 years of revisions, and built into that was several iterations of what we have now, and that proportionality, the 8765431, or however many applicants there would be that year, was built into that formula. But the thing to remember is that this is always just a recommendation, and the CAC can, with a 2/3 majority vote, override that, but they have to identify who it's taken from and who it's given to and the reason. So that would be something that you can still do, but what we can't do at this stage is go back and change what the formula is, because that has already passed. If there is a desire to make a permanent change to the formula, we could definitely have a subcommittee and revisit it before next year's allocation. But for tonight, the process has already been approved, and so you do have the opportunity to override it, but it would be on a motion by motion basis.
Heather, again, thank you for the clarification. Ms. Johnson?
Thank you for that, but I guess I want to, I can't read, what is the
Oh.
heading above that number, 8,000?
It says remaining funds awarded equally to applicants. This is the equal column.
Okay.
So there's proportional according to points, dollars equivalent to point earned. Let's take project renewal as our example, since they're at the top. 24,558, that's their equivalent dollars to their equivalent points. In the second pass, they received 8% of the remaining funds, just because that's what the formula says, which equated out to $8,046 in the second pass. But after that second pass, there was still $64,000 remaining. And so you take $64,000, you divide that by the 8 applicants, and that comes out to $8,046. And then each applicant gets an equal share. And I have to say, I think when this was decided, the scores tended to be a little bit farther apart from each other. And so there was less left over in that third step. And so when you're dividing $5,000 by 8, it's a lot less money. So I feel like in this year, the scores are pretty close to each other. And frankly, I would expect to see that, because as we talked through our workshop, I mean, nobody had big compliance issues this year. People turned things on time this year. I think the quality of the writing and the time put into the applications was somewhat better than it had been last year, when I know there were a lot of problems that the CAC identified. And we did deliver those comments to the applicants, and I think they listened, that they tried to put a little more effort into it this year than maybe they had last year, when, you know, their attention was divided by, you know, the pandemic and all these things. So I just feel like the quality was a little bit better across the board. So I'm not surprised to see that the scores are a little bit closer across the board. I think that would be my comment there, just having seen several years of this.
Thank you, Mr. Clausen.
Yeah, in respect with what Austin said, I think it's a good idea to review that, but I don't think that we can do that right at this point, because that would be changing everything to this. That's something maybe for a committee to look at, and it's a good idea, but I don't think it's a timely one for this particular award. And on top of that, all the things that Heather said, this committee underwent a lot of heat and a lot of questions and a lot of stuff. And when we switched to the formula and we started doing things by a set procedure, that mostly went away. People just started, oh yeah, here's how they do it, so they accepted it. And so as long as you keep it consistently and you do it, I mean, yeah, maybe you need to change one or two up there, that's fine, but to throw the whole thing out and start over again, you don't want to go there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Obleton?
Being part of several of the groups that had met, the previous way that things were done had gotten a lot more political than we needed or wanted them to be. And so the process was set up to help minimize as much as we could the politics that went into it. And this is one situation, an organization didn't like what they got funded, so they went to the city council to get more money because they didn't feel that they were funded like they should have been. And their proposal was one of the weaker proposals that year. And so that's when we started saying, if somebody takes the time and puts the energy into showing they want the money, they should be given credit for that, as opposed to leaving it up to the total politics. Granted, we can't take all of the politics out of it, but we can limit some of the issues that were brought up. And by setting it up the way we have, it makes it a lot more fair than it had been in some of the other situations.
Thank you so much. Mr. Woble?
So I just have to say, mathematically, I don't understand how one organization can get funded 100% what they asked for, and no other organization got 100% of what they asked for, even though some of them might have had higher. I think one had a higher score. So I don't know, something seems wrong with the math there. Like, how can one group get 100% and no one else get 100%?
So the formula does not take into account what they ask for in any way. The formula just strictly goes by the points. And so you can see the one agency that was fully funded is by far the lowest request. So it's 35,000, and you can see most of them are in the 40, 50, 60 even thousand range. And so by just virtue of what they requested, their calculated amount based on the score that they earned jibed with the number that they requested. Had they requested a higher amount, they also would not have gotten fully funded. It's strictly a function of what they requested, just happened to line up with the amount that they were awarded.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson?
Thank you. Sorry. So real quickly, just in regards to that, I totally am with you on that because in years past, I've sat there and I've figured out the exact like percentage of what they were getting and all of that. But it makes total sense. I mean, as far as what they've asked for. So if an organization asks for $1,000, you can easily understand how you would fully fund them and possibly not the next. So that's where, so I totally understand where you're coming from, but I think that this makes sense now that I understand it better. In regards to Austin's comment, I understand what he's saying, and I guess I don't think that it would take too much to recalculate just that amount, that $64,000 amount in proportion to how we did before. But I guess my question, and not, I don't want to recreate the wheel either, but is with that formula, why is there a third component? Why don't we figure it out after the second run?
There's no particular reason that I can give, other than earlier subcommittees, decided that this is how they wanted to do it, which isn't to say it can't change in the future. If the current CAC would like to revisit it, I think every time we've met on it, and I want to say there's been 3 separate subcommittees on that. I think, Tammy, I think you've been on all of them. It always comes down to the struggle, whatever the last step is, whether it's step 1 is the last step, or step 2 is the last step, or step 3, it comes up against the fact that HUD won't allow us to have unawarded dollars. And so those last dollars, whatever they happen to be, have to be awarded somehow. And whatever step it's going to take to do that, whether it's proportional or equal or, all to the winner take all at the top. We've talked about, and even done, I think, several different iterations of that. And whatever that last step is always the part that they struggle the most with because somehow the dollars have to get awarded. And there's no perfect right way to do it. And HUD's never going to tell you the way you have to do it. They're just going to say you have to do it. And be ready to defend it, which is always the HUD thing.
Thank you. Ms. Lord?
One of the reasons why we have that third step is we used to have a lot more people in the public service. And I think over the years, have dropped 5 or 6 out. So that's 5 or 6 less people. So I think that's why we're now seeing it going through a third time is because we don't have as many people as we did before.
And I would agree with that. When I started with CDBG, we had 15 public service subrecipients and 4 non-public service subrecipients. And so through the years, a lot of them have just either decided the money was too much work, or several of them have gone out of business, and we just don't have the same numbers that we used to.
Thank you.
So I think that's a good point, that also the extra money divided 15 ways is a lot different than the extra money divided 8 ways.
Thank you so much. Ms. Hodges?
I think the one thing we have to remember also, this committee is made up of 15 people, 15 different mindset. So when you take the scores, and unfortunately only 11 were turned in this year, but when you start averaging them out, it just shows you where everybody's driving from. So I think we need to keep that in mind, that there really is 15 people that have a say in this. It's not 1 or 2 people.
Thank you. Is there any further comment or questions?
I just wanted to say really fast that I think, I'm kind of new to this, but I do understand where all these numbers come from, and I respect everybody's opinion onto this, but you guys have definitely put a lot of effort, so I think we should just move on. I think it has been a lot of explanations of, especially from your part, of where everything comes from, and it just makes sense. Yes, it's a wheel that has been set up before. Today is not a day to reinvent it. Maybe we can come back and take a look at it. It's just, I think we just need to move on to the next step.
So, Mr. Obleton?
When you speak, could you please turn on your mic because it's hard for us to hear you over here. Okay.
I did have it on, but I guess I'm not close enough.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If you can't hear yourself from up here, that probably means we can't hear you that well either.
I will, thank you.
Mr. Kiefer.
Yes, can I make a motion to approve the allocation as stated? I'm sorry, thank you. We were just talking about this. Can I make a motion to approve the allocation as stated, how they worked out?
Second.
So the motion is to approve the allocations as stated, and the motion is moved and seconded. Roll call.
Sorry about that. Gilmore,
Yes.
Hodges. Holloway,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Kiefer,
Yes.
Lord. Wolin,
Yes.
Nolan. Obleton,
Yes.
Rasso,
Yes.
Bird,
Yes.
Classen.
Yes.
Yep, motion passes.
Thank you. I'll now look at the non-public services and entertain a motion to recommend allocation amounts for the city administration planning and city staff supplies. Mr. Kiefer.
Do we have to have a motion then and roll call to look
Yes.
at
So,
non-public, right?
yeah,
I'll make a motion that we review non-public services.
great, thank you.
Motion's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
I'm sorry, it will have to be a roll call. Sorry about that. We've got to keep Dawn busy. She's just a bump on a log
Thank
over
you,
here.
Don. Appreciate it.
Okay, this is my job. Hodges. Holloway,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Kiefer,
Yes.
Lord. Wolin. Nolan. Obleton,
Yes.
Rasso,
Yes.
Bird,
Yes.
Classen,
Yes.
Gilmore.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Heather, would you please review the non-public
Yeah.
allocations, please?
So as a reminder, so we've just done the public services, and the public services, because of the way it's set up, they are all full applications that are scored. The non-public services is not it's not capped by HUD, and it includes categories that are not scored, and that includes the planning and administration for the grant as a whole, and the rehab staff and supplies for the rehab admin programs. And so because those are kind of, they're in the non-public service category, but they aren't actually program delivery in the sense that the RLFs are, there isn't a direct application for that. And so as a result, in the non-public service category, the CAC just has to make a motion, discuss and vote on the allocations for the planning and administration and the housing rehab staff and supplies. And once that is done, then the formula will calculate the recommended award for the two revolving loan funds, which includes the housing rehab and neighborhood development revolving loan fund. And remember that included in that number, in that fund, is all of our various housing programs for rental and for owner occupied. And then our economic development revolving loan fund is the second. Whoops, please don't need an update. This would be a terrible time. I'm telling it so it will listen to me. In the economic development fund is our small business loan program, our micro enterprise, and our business facade programs. So all of those are considered by HUD to be non-public service. They're in one big lump of a category, but they are very different things. And so that's why they're kind of approached a little differently. So with that, the next step would be a motion, a second, and discussion and a vote on the planning and administration and the housing rehab staff and supplies.
Thank you, Heather. Mr. Clausen?
Yeah, I just also wanted to add that some cities do not do anything with the public services. They do everything in the non-public category. So, I mean, the fact that we peel that out and still allocate that is commendable to our city.
Is there any discussion or entertain a motion?
I'd
Mr.
like to
Byrd.
make a motion to approve as based on the sample allocation.
Can I?
It's been moved and seconded, but Heather, please.
I would just clarify that we're not quite to the step where we would approve the calculated amount because we can't yet calculate the amount. The motion that we would actually need at this moment would be a dollar amount for the planning and administration and the housing rehab staff and supplies. So you can see the requested amounts there for the two categories. And what we would actually need is a motion with dollar amounts for those two categories at this time. So I would propose maybe the motion on the floor is withdrawn and the second withdrawn, and then we'll get there. You'll still have your chance.
So those have to be two separate motions, one for planning and then one for.
It can be one motion that includes them both. There just have to be dollar amounts in them.
Okay, so I would like to make a motion for planning and admin at $287,560, and then is it the housing rehab?
Yes. The
And housing and rehab at $311,674. Okay, so
Yep, and she
first
re-
motion withdrawn.
Yep. Mhm.
Okay.
Got it. Nope, we gotcha. Like I said, Dawn needs to be real busy tonight.
The motion's been moved and seconded. We do the roll call.
Holloway,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Kiefer,
Yes.
Lord, Wolin.
Are we voting on approving those amounts or just to bringing it up for a vote?
This would be a vote to approve the two top categories, the planning and admin and the rehab staff and supplies. And then, once that step is complete, then we would move on to the two non-public revolving loan funds, which would be Housing Rehab Fund and Economic Development Fund.
And did we get any details of what makes up those numbers?
Yes, they were all in the application materials.
Okay, I did not see detail on that.
Yeah, in the applications from January, they were all in those packets.
Okay. I abstain.
Nolan, Obleton,
Yes.
Rasso,
Yes.
Byrd,
Yes.
Klassen,
Yes.
Gilmore,
Yes.
Hodges. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, so I will type in the numbers and then we'll move on to the next group of items. If I can see. Okay, so with that recommended amount, so in this case, the formula works exactly the same as the formula that we discussed down below. There would be the first pass, which is the dollars equivalent to the points earned. In this case, the rehab fund would earn 201, and the economic development fund would earn 200. And then the second pass would award additional funding to the highest scoring applicants in order. However, in the first pass, the Economic Development Fund already reached its cap. It already reached its request of 200. And so the remaining dollar amounts, there's only one place to put them, and that is under the housing rehab and neighborhood development. And so then that would take us to our final calculated award, which are displayed here in the column I'm highlighting. And as I said, this is just as we discussed with the public services, the CAC has the right to discuss and make changes to this calculated amount based on a vote that identifies where the money is coming from, where it's going to, and why. And it would be a 2/3 majority vote. And again, we cannot move money out of the non-public service and put it into the public service because the public service has already reached its cap. So the money can be moved around within this category, but it cannot be moved out of this category.
Okay, I need a little bit of clarification on this. So since we don't know exactly what HUD's going to give us,
Correct.
and it's plus or minus 15%. The
Correct.
plus or minus 15% comes out of the non-public service. Is that correct? Because the public service is capped at 290?
No, so if HUD's actual dollar amount is an increase over what we expect, then the 15% would apply equally to both the non-public service and the public service. We would fund the public service to whatever we believe the new cap is based on the actual number, so then the public service would get extra in that case. If, however, HUD's actual amount is lower than we expect, then we would have to actually back money out of the public service and move it into non-public because we cannot exceed the cap in that category.
So the 290 is based on
Our current estimate.
okay, okay, I understand.
Correct. If the actual amount goes up, then public service rises with that boat. If the amount goes down, unfortunately, they go down with that boat. But we estimate conservatively because we never want to tell people their allocation and then take money away from them. So, and I will also say there have been times where if we could swing it and there was a cut, we've volunteered to take it out of the city programs just because if it is able to be done under the cap without exceeding, then we will try not to have to cut that if we don't have to.
Thank you, Heather. Mr. Colosso?
Do we need another motion on this one, or are we done with the non-public?
There would be, we would need well, there's two things.
I know
the
about the
opportun-
15%. I was going to make that motion, but it's not time for
We're
that
not quite
yet.
there yet.
Right.
Yep. So right now would be discussing what's displayed as the calculated amount. If anybody has any proposed changes to this, it would be a motion that would identify where you're taking money from, where you're moving money to.
I'll make a motion and
and
we'll go
why.
with the calculated amount.
Okay, and then I was going to say, or if there's no discussion, then, or no proposed motions, then you can do that. And then after that, the next step will be the full slate.
Mr. Rowland?
I would make an amendment to move money from this economic development to the rehab, to make the monies proportional, whereas one's only getting about 60% and the other one's getting 100% of what they asked for. And so I would move money to equalize that. That would be my requested amendment.
There's a motion on the table.
Um,
Heather?
I have a motion first. He made an amendment, but mine wasn't seconded. It's already capped, isn't it?
Well, I'll second it. I was under that impression too.
It is seconded.
Okay.
Where are you going to move the money? You can't go above the request.
No, I would move it from the economic development to the rehab. Because rehab's is only getting 60% of what they asked for, and economic development is getting 100% of what they asked for. And of course, again, mathematically, that doesn't make sense to me, and that they should each get whatever percentage should be equal between the two of them. So if one's getting 75%, however it works out to come out to the total dollar amount, like they should each get then 75%, because they got pretty much the same score percentage-wise. And so it doesn't make sense that one should get 100% and the other 60% in my mind.
Heather, can you please provide clarification on when there's an amendment offered?
An amendment to
A motion.
a motion? Well, if there's a motion on the floor that has been seconded, then an amendment is offered. The motion and the second would have to accept that amendment.
Thank you.
So let me make sure I'm understanding. Fred, you made a motion, and Nancy, did you second the motion? I'm sorry, Joseph, I knew it was that end. I couldn't tell whose voice.
Did we have discussion, though?
Hold
Well,
on
we
one second,
hadn't had
1 second.
discussion. Were you proposing an amendment to that motion, or were you
No, I was
proposing your own motion?
I was
Okay.
making my own motion.
So in that case, and Dale, I'm going to lean on you too, because I know you know this stuff better than I do. My understanding then is the motion on the floor has to be dealt with one way or the other, or withdrawn before a new motion can be considered. Is that correct, Dale?
Well, the motion on the floor can be discussed,
Okay,
and during that discussion, there can't be an amendment to the motion.
Okay, but you were offering, Jay, a new amendment, is that, or a new
Well, I
motion?
pressed my button, but he was called before me, so,
Oh,
you know.
okay, okay,
Or spoke up before I did.
okay. So,
So there should be a discussion on the initial motion.
okay, so that, I would go with Dale, who is more of an expert than I, so I will,
We'll open the floor for discussion. Is there any discussion on the amendment? On the motion, sorry.
I would make an amendment to the motion based on what I said earlier.
Mr. Clausen?
I was just going to say that generally, one of the two is usually higher than it needs to be necessarily, and that's to take care of any extra award that we might get. And I'm going to assume that Housing and Rehab doesn't really expect, when they put in for 800,000, they don't really expect to get quite that much. And that there's a little bit of leeway, a cushion there, so that if more comes in, it will be directed in that direction. But they want to make sure that whatever economic development gets is what they really need.
I would say the rehabilitation, to me, is more important than economic development. And I would imagine then, under that same scenario, economic development wouldn't expect to get what they need either, what they ask for, if you're making that assumption.
Thank you. Mr. Obleton?
Can you give us a better idea of what arrangement you feel should be there then? To say one should get more than the other, if you can give us a dollar amount, because in the end, we have to go with a dollar amount.
Is that directed towards me? Yeah, so.
Yes.
So I don't, well, one more than the other. I'm just wanting to make it equitable, that they get the same percentage of what they asked for. And one shouldn't get 100% and the other 60. So, you know, I don't know what that comes to. So does somebody have a calculator that they can help with that?
If we add the two numbers that are requested together, that would be 80-20, 80% and 20%. Because that equals to 100,000, so percentage on it would be 80% and 20%. Is that what you're proposing, that one gets 80% and the other gets the 20?
No, that's not what I'm proposing. I'm proposing they should, like, each get 75%, or if that's what it comes out to even it.
if I could point out, so in this scenario, let me make sure I'm doing this right because I don't want to mess it up.
Right, 856, right.
So in this scenario, after admin expenses and rehab staff expenses are removed, there's 856 available. If we go by the same calculation, that rehab requested 80% of the total and ED requested 20% of the total, if we give rehab 80% of what's available and ED 20% of what's available, this would be what it would be, 684 and change for rehab and 171 and change for ED.
That would seem fair to me, and that's what I would ask to amend it to.
Is there any further discussion? So are we asking for a amendment or a motion?
I think it's an amendment to Fred's
Okay.
motion.
Fred,
I think that's the way I was told it had to be done. right?
Mr. Clausen, do you?
If there's a motion on the floor, we have to either vote on that motion or amend that motion and vote on.
And so we'd have to vote on that amendment to the motion now?
He has to accept.
Technically,
He has
yes.
to- yeah.
Okay. That's true. Right.
Is there a second?
To the amendment?
To the amendment, right.
I just have a quick question. How did you come up with the 80-20 split?
Because between housing rehab and ED, 1 million
Oh.
was requested. 80%
Got
of
it,
that
got
was
it.
housing rehab and 20% of that was ED.
Got it.
Is there a second?
I will second for purpose of discussion. To go from 200,000 to 171 is, to me, it's not a big deal. It's not the hill I want to die on, but, and in the other one to go from whatever it was.
Let me scroll up. 656 to
Yes.
684.
Yeah, 8 to 656. I personally don't see a big deal with it, but if that's what the CAC wants to vote for, that's fine. But like I said, I seconded for purpose of discussion, so. So now we can have we will have further discussion or we'll have a vote on the amendment.
Thank you. Ms. Lord?
I guess I'm just being brain dead right now. I don't understand why we're penalizing the city economic development just because they ask for less money than the other.
Right, I don't see it as penalizing them. They each ask for a certain amount, and I think we're actually penalizing rehab the way the calculation is. They should, in my mind, it's fairer, and that's really the only, it's not like I really care about one more than the other, but, well, I do, but that's not the purpose of this. I really believe it's just fairer that they should each get, like, one shouldn't get 100% of what they ask for and the other one 60%. That does not seem fair to me.
But their percentages are very close together, so how are we coming
Right.
up with an 80-20?
Because that was based on the percentage of the total pool of money, like, just
So
put.
if we go with yours, then it should be 50-50, and then the extra money should go up to one of those other two up above.
Well, we were just trying to make it a simple calculation. And so my thought is just that it's fair that they each get the same percentage of what they asked for.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Clausen?
The formula that we use doesn't give them the same, that type of a same percentage on the end of the process. It gives them a percentage in the middle, and then the rest of it is awarded. The 200,000 versus the 171,000, I think the 30,000 would be much more of a stretch for the city economic development to lose than it would be for the housing rehab to gain. So I would be against that.
Okay. So I'm going to call the question, and we'll have a roll call vote.
And to be clear, we're voting on the amendment, that's correct?
That is correct. We're voting on the amendment, doing a roll call vote for the amendment.
And Jay, would you restate your amendment, just so we can make sure we get it down right?
Right, to reallocate the what was it, 856,000 as indicated on the spreadsheet below there.
And Dawn, for your benefit, that would be changing the rehab from, 656,039 to 684,831. Yep. Okay.
Okay, we're going to roll call. Johnson,
No.
Kiefer,
No.
Lord. No. Wolin,
Yes.
Nolan. Obleton,
No.
Rasso,
No.
Byrd,
No.
Klassen,
No.
Gilmore,
No.
Hodges,
No.
Holloway.
No.
And the motion does not carry. The amendment, my apologies.
So now do we have a vote on the actual original motion?
Yes.
Okay.
And Fred, could you restate your original motion, please?
The original motion was to award to those two entities the amount that was calculated.
Okay.
The motion's been moved and seconded.
Yes. Yes, Obleton. is
My
the second.
question is, does he need to say what the amounts were as we did with the previous one?
Do you want to state can you see them up there?
I believe that's $656,039 to housing rehab and neighborhood, and city economic development, $200,000.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm ready. Kiefer,
Yes.
Lord? Yes. Wolin,
No.
Nolan? Yes. Obleton,
Yes?
Rasso,
Yes.
Bird,
Yes.
Classen,
Yes.
Gilmore,
Yes.
Hodges? Holloway,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
The motion passes.
I would like to recognize Mr. Clausen.
I would make the motion that we allow staff to adjust 15% up or down depending on what the final tally of funds available are from HUD.
The motion has been moved and seconded by Ms. Hodges.
Discussion.
Moved
Is
and
there
seconded.
any discussion?
Any discussion at all?
Do we need to make that for both the public and the other,
Yeah,
and the service motions, so that both of them will be for the 15%?
Yeah, so the motion that should come before the 15% is to approve the full slate here. You always get one motion ahead, Fred. You're so excited about the 15%. And there's actually one other motion that we have to approve, and that is the use of program income towards economic development staff costs.
I will table my motion.
Thank you.
I will entertain a motion for program income.
And the amount that has been requested is equivalent to as in the application, was equivalent to 20% of their 2 staff positions from their program income, and that is $52,886 is the requested amount of program income. So this is allowed under the HUD regulations, so they just fund a portion of their staff out of the program income that the fund generates.
I'd like to recognize Mr. Obleton.
I'm sorry, Joseph, I
What
can't
is
hear
it that
you.
we need to be making a motion for?
Let me blow this up so you
That
can
one.
see it better.
The one, okay.
This one
For
here.
program income authority.
Yes, so we have not, the city has not requested any program income for administration or planning, nor any program income for rehab staff and supplies, but ED, as has historically been the case, economic development funds 20% of their staff out of their program income that they generate. And this year, that's estimated to be equivalent to $52,886.
Okay, then I would make a motion that we approve the City Economic Development Fund for the $52,886.
It's been moved and seconded by Ms. Johnson. Is there any discussion?
Now, do we have to designate where that's going to go?
This is outside of the entitlement allocation, so there's no money to move around. The only eligible uses for revolving loan fund dollars are projects in the revolving loan fund or staff to carry out the activities of the revolving loan fund. So this is just an eligible use in its own right, and it doesn't come out of the new entitlement grant.
Thank you. Mr. Clausen.
Yeah, is this money, you said, generated from some of the loans and the interest that they got?
Correct, the
And
interest.
is this up from years past?
It is. Well,
love
I
that.
mean, it is in the sense that we are charging interest and generating interest repayments. However, through the pandemic, we've put a lot of the loans on pause. So the number in the whole is lower, but we expect as things return to regular business that will
And some of
reset.
this is also money that's been paid back from previous loans that
Correct.
otherwise that have not been forgiven, basically
Correct.
just returned. Good,
Correct.
very good. Glad to see that. That
Yep.
gives hope for the procedure of this thing even beyond this committee when the HUD stops giving us money.
That's correct.
So that's a good thing. Thank you.
Mr. Wolin?
Just so I understand, the income is earned, is that on loans from economic development, not from rehab or
Correct.
anything else? Okay,
So
thank you.
HUD allows the establishment of revolving loan funds, and each one stands on its own. So they're totally separate regulations for economic development versus housing. So the money that goes into and is generated by housing stays with housing, and the money that goes into and is generated by economic development stays in economic development. They never cross each other.
Is there any further discussion? The motion was moved and seconded.
All right. Wolin,
Yes.
Nolan, Obleton,
Yes.
Rasso,
Yes.
Byrd,
Yes.
Clausen,
Yes.
Gilmore,
Yes.
Hodges, Holloway,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Kiefer,
Yes.
Lord. And the motion carries.
And so the next motion is also not 15%. It is to approve the full slate of allocations. He was leaning
Both
forward
public
in
and
his chair.
non-public, yes.
For your benefit, Mark, the next one would be approving the full slate as displayed there. And if the group is okay, I can blow it up so the program income is off the screen, but you can see everything else a little bit better.
Thank you again. Ms. Johnson, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you. I will motion to recommend the entire slate of allocation recommendations to be forwarded to City Council.
Mr. Kiefer,
I will second.
is there any discussion on the recommendation to approve the entire slate? Seeing none, the motion's been moved and seconded.
Sorry.
I'm good.
Nolan, Obleton,
Yes.
Rasso,
Yes.
Byrd,
Yes.
Clausen,
Yes.
Gilmore,
Yes.
Hodges, Holloway,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Kiefer,
Yes.
Lord, Wolin.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. And now we'll have
I would like
another
to,
motion, Mr. Clausen.
I would like to reinstate the motion that we allow staff to adjust upward or downward 15%, depending on the actual allocation coming from HUD, so that we don't have to have another meeting if we don't need one. Thank you.
And I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded by Ms. Hodges. Is there any discussion? Ms. Heather, please.
I just want to clarify that if the actual dollar amount would be in excess of 15% plus or minus, we would have to have another meeting, so we would call a special session, just so that you know. But the wrinkle to that is this is the last session of our term, and we don't expect to hear from HUD what our allocation amount is until probably June. So it will be quite a moment if we have to come back.
I would also add to that staff would notify us or notify the committee of the changes that were
Yes.
made.
Yep, we absolutely will.
Ms. Nolan? I'm not hearing you.
It shows that it's on, but I'm not hearing you. Maybe go off of Joseph's.
Thank you. Okay, it's an observation that leads to a question. You had mentioned of the 15 on the committee, only 11 people submitted their questionnaires. That's only 73%, not 100%. So it seems to me that that would affect the percentage numbers that are being awarded.
So the pie is smaller as a whole because there are fewer scorer sheets returned, but the share would be the same assuming the scores were the same across, if there were 15 versus 11 or 12 or 9 or however many, the total pie number shrinks or goes up depending on how many scores we get back. So does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
It does make sense, but even 4 can make a difference.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, especially when we're talking now about, as I said, scores have gotten closer this year than
Right.
they typically are. And so, we would encourage everybody in every year to turn in everything, but life does get in the way sometimes, I know. So,
Right.
But yeah, who knows what they might have been had we received all of those, so.
In the past, is this typical, the number of respondents to the questionnaire? Is this the 73% typical?
I would say no, this would be an unusually low year.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion?
You ready for me?
Yes, the motion has been made and seconded, please.
Perfect. Byrd,
Yes.
Klassen,
Yes.
Gilmore,
Yes.
Hodges, Holloway,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Kiefer,
Yes.
Lord, Wolin,
Yes.
Nolan,
Yes.
Obleton,
Yes.
Rasso. Yes. And the motion carries.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion to move to Ms. Heather?
Oh, I thought you were going to say a motion to adjourn.
No, no.
Okay.
No, that's what
Sorry, I was gonna say, no,
Dale
not
said,
yet.
no. We're good here.
Okay. Other business. So I do have a couple of things. One, as I mentioned, this is the last meeting of this iteration of the CAC. So for those of you who have joined us these last few years, obviously this has been a term quite unlike any other. You guys have done the very first in history CAC remote meetings. So congrats on that. And thank you for sticking with us this last couple years. We've canceled a lot more meetings than we normally would, just to minimize contact. We've done the remote meetings. We've done a lot of things that we haven't, always had to do. So thank you for those of you who have gone through this last couple years with us. For those who are choosing to go off, I haven't been notified, I don't think, of everyone, but I know Fred has decided he would like not to be reappointed.
It wasn't my decision.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I apologize for saying that.
Okay, I was going to cover that, but I'll wait.
Oh, no. And then Jay, I believe, is the other one that I know for sure. Also, Joseph Winkler, who hasn't joined us recently due to some health problems, is not being reappointed or has chosen not to be reappointed. And then anybody else, those are the only ones that I've known about. So if you have decided to or been decided for you, please let me know, because we don't necessarily always get that information. But I certainly hope that all of you will choose to continue to join if you can. And we will meet in April. We don't have allocation business, assuming that, assuming either we have HUD numbers and they're within plus or minus 15%, or on the other hand, that we don't have HUD numbers and we don't expect them before June. So I wouldn't expect that we would have them. But we do need to meet in April, because we have to have our organizing meeting where we elect a chair and vice chair and appoint a grievance subcommittee. So we'll talk about that. And then we usually use our April meeting to recap kind of the allocation process and take comments or questions if we're gonna, think about any differences. I know we brought up some comments here about the formula and why it is, and if you want to revisit that, we certainly can. So be thinking about that stuff before the April meeting. Other than that, we'll talk about it in April, but we will probably not need a May or June meeting, but we will need a July meeting, because we'll have to already be starting our public input process for the next program year. We barely just ended this one. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is these allocation recommendations are just that, they're recommendations. They will go to City Council for a discussion on, I don't have the date in front of me, I should have printed it out. They will go the 16th. of March for the Committee of the Whole, and the 23rd of March for the council approval. And we always invite our chair to attend and discuss the recommendations if he so chooses, but any CAC members are welcome to attend and join us for that meeting. So those would be the points that I had, but it sounds like, Fred, you had some comments too.
Go ahead, Fred, now I have some comments.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. My older person called me up and has somebody else that he was comfortable with serving, and that's fine. I'm great with that. It's a golden parachute for me. I've really enjoyed working with this group. I want you to join us for some cake back there on your way out. And I just want to say it's important work you do here. It's not important that you all agree, but it's important that everybody cares. And I will say that I'm a little disappointed in the people that didn't turn in their score sheets for whatever reason. I don't ever remember that happening. I don't remember anybody not turning one in, let alone that many. So somebody needs to talk to those people. But anyway, thank you for all the support. And if anybody ever has a question that you think I might have an answer to, please don't hesitate to call.
Thank you. So I have three things. First of all, I want to say, Fred, thank you for your service to the Citizens Advisory Committee. Several years.
I want to say at least 8. 8? I want to say I think you've done 4 terms.
8 is the longest years of my life.
Yeah, I think so.
It might. I'll look it up. I should have brought that form. I should have looked it up. But yeah, no, it's been a minute. That's for sure.
So Fred, thank you for your years of service. Number 2, if you have not turned in your application, you do plan to remain on the CAC, please get those in to the mayor's office as soon as possible. And then number 3, I think this meeting was a good reminder of the hard work that our staff does for this committee. There were a lot of questions, there was a lot of history, there's a lot of calculating, recalculating. That is not easy, right? You have lots of people with lots of questions and different opinions, and so you all have been gracious in answering them and being patient with us. And so we appreciate it on behalf of the council. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for the compliment. We're always glad to deliver good service, so we're glad to know that you're pleased.
Thank you so much.
And I am glad that Reagan did not catch me in a math error this year.
Mr. Gilmore.
One of the things, each alderman gets to appoint or ask somebody to serve on the committee, but the alderman does not have to pick somebody from their ward. So if there are other aldermen who haven't made up a decision yet, Fred is still available. So, yeah.
Several emails have been sent.
If called upon, I always try to serve, but I don't want to displace anybody for any reason.
Thank you. Thank you for your graciousness. Thank you, Lord. Thank you all. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move we adjourn.
The motion on the table? Is there a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded by Ms. Lord. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed. Chocolate cake back there. All right. Please enjoy some cake.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
We appreciate you all so much. Oh, good. I just bring you the one I brought. Okay.
I have it back there, but he brought one also.
Okay.